Hello, user testing community. It is Mike McDow once again from the Solutions Consulting team here at User Testing, back with another tip of the week. Now, sometimes I tell you that these tips come directly from customer conversations, things that I've seen, things that I've dealt with over the course of the previous week, and this week is no different from that. So I had a situation where a number of tasks in a customer study were not being completed. Actually, in this case, it was one task. One task wasn't being completed. And we looked into the study, and what I quickly realized was there was a very likely cause of this problem where it wasn't that the contributors didn't want to complete the task, it was that they thought they already completed the task. So they just skipped over it because they thought they already did it. Occasionally that sort of thing happens where, we'll be like, oh, did I click it? Oh, let me click it again. And so what it turns out is the customer, the user testing customer, they created the same task twice in a row. Now, it was a different task, but it was so close that the contributor just thought that it was the same task. So they just didn't realize. And so a good number of them actually just sort of skipped over it. And we noticed this when we watched the video, that this is what actually occurred. And so I'm just going to give you an example of how this sort of thing can happen. So I'm in my test plan builder, and I come down here to my test plan. Now, let's say that I do a URL task, and I put in my URL, google.com, or something like that. I'll use the Hertz example. So let's say I was doing a competitive comparison, and I put in hertz.com, and then I said, try to get a rate for a car, in New York City for the weekend. So I put that in there, and then I say, okay, then I want the next task to be a competitor. So I'm going to say, okay, let me do another URL. And I'm going to put in enterprise.com. And I'm going to say, go find the best rate for a car in New York City for this weekend. Same thing. And what might happen is when they go to advance the task, they see that it's the same message, the same instruction text. They might not notice the URL, but they see the same instruction text. They might just go, no, I just did this. And then they just move on to the next task. Same thing can happen with, let's say you're doing a classic card sort and you put in a card sort task. And again, you're just putting in the URL and then they go over to the card sort and they do the card sort. And then you throw in another card sort right after that and you want them to do a second one. Well, now, again, to them, it looks like I just did this card sort. And even if they notice the page reloading and everything, in the other tab, they might still think, I just did this. I don't need to do it again. And they'll advance to the next task. So a tip that I would recommend is if you are going to do two similar activities, whether it's card sorts, URL assessments, things like that, do your URL, but instead of putting the task in the instruction text, put a task after it, and then do maybe an assessment rating after, whoops, I put that in the wrong spot. Do an assessment rating after that. What you're doing here is you're creating a number of steps that make up this particular activity instead of trying to lump it all into one and then just copying that into another lump sum task. So now you've got 1, 2, 3. Now, when the next URL launches, it's obvious that it's not the same task they already did because they've gone 2 tasks since then. So stick in a few extra tasks in between because one, it's just good research. You want to put in some assessments after they've done something. Even if you're getting that great think out loud research, just let them self-assess as well. Just so you can compare the 2 responses. And then we move on to the next, URL task, rating scale task. So very, very simple to do, and it will be much, much more helpful both for you in terms of the output and for your contributors in terms of their understanding of whether or not they've actually taken the steps in the task and done them already. So try not to put 2 tasks that are too similar right in a row. You can put 2 rating scales in a row as long as the wording is obviously different in terms of what the task says. But when you put 2 things in that are like launch URL, do this, launch another URL, do the same thing, or go to this card sort, do this, go to another card sort, do it the same thing, but with another set of cards, it's very easy for a contributor to get confused. So just make sure that we structure our studies nicely so that there is, basically we eliminate that possibility of confusion from the contributors. So that's going to be it for now. Hopefully this eliminates any of the issues that anyone out there has been having that hasn't spoken up about it, thanks to one of my customers who surfaced this issue and we were able to diagnose it and find it. So until next Tuesday, I'm Mike McDowell for User Testing, and we'll be back again with another User Testing Tip of the Week.